I'm D22-soso Wayne Chung. Before StarCraft, a high school friend, Stanley Hugh, who ended up going to MIT, set me up with something called Kali, Kali, which was an IPX network emulator enabling multiplayer games to work over a TCP/IP network. So basically making the internet into just like a local LAN connection. So we started with Command and Conquer, Warcraft 2, and I played on Case's ladder, and I got to number one in Command and Conquer one-on-one teams, Warcraft 2 teams. I don't think I made it to Warcraft 2 one-on-one. I believe whoever was number one at the time like wouldn't play me. I think I was either number two or number three. Anyway, that was the background, and I just played too many games. So after Warcraft 2, I was gonna quit. But my Warcraft 2 teammate from C4L, Super Peon, bought StarCraft, mailed to my house, like get the pre-order mailed to my house opening day. And that's how I started. I At that time my handle was so whack. People were wondering what that came from. It was actually a playoff so def, except my initials are like WC/WAC. So it wasn't that my nickname was so as in a mid, but so my first game of StarCraft, I just kind of like browsed through the manual really quickly, and I saw I played Zerg because I saw there's these things called overlords, and it's like, oh, they fly, they're slow, they have a lot of armor, and the name Overlord sounds like, really powerful, right? So I just went all overlords, and needless to say, I didn't win that game. So that's how I got into StarCraft. It's only took like 10 games, and all the people with Age of Empires, Warcraft 2, and Command and Conquer backgrounds did pretty well. They got to like top 50 fairly quickly. Um, there was a store called Matchplay/Neutral Ground. I don't know what it was named that year, but it was April 1998, and they probably ran the first StarCraft tournament ever. So Magic the Gathering legend Brian Weissman came late, but I don't think he played. But Gadianton played. He was the first vanilla StarCraft world champion. So there were like 20 people. Gadianton and I were obviously the best, so we just made it to the finals and I won. And at that time, like I was so anti-gambling, he wanted a rematch. And I'm just like, all right, we can do it for $5. And he's like, come on, man, $10. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I beat him in the rematch and kind of like the rest is history. Um, I got to number one in cases ladder in StarCraft for one-on-one and teams. For BattleNet, I might have gone top 10 like season one or season two. I remember season one, the number one guy was like Villard or something, and like number two was like Everlast. And I think that's when Zilius and Guillaume. Actually, we're gonna be mentioning Guillaume a lot. So are we calling him Gur or are we calling him Guillaume?
It's really up to you. I think people know him
People
from
know.
both,
Okay.
but
Well, even though he's supposedly my arch nemesis, he's my good friend, and I even owe him a favor, but we'll call him Guillaume. So yeah, Guillaume was like top 10 in season two. I was at minimum top 20 season one and season two. I don't know if I made top 10, but part of it, as I'm sure the audience has heard, there was like win trading. Also, season one was so ridiculous because Villard and others, I'm like, where is this guy? How come I can't play him? So what they did was they played FFAs. So if you win an FFA, you get the ELO for like all the three other players. So like a lot of us stupid one-on-one grinders were like trying to get these high ELOs when like these FFA players were just like,
huh.
getting triple or ELO. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was like a lot of stuff back then that's just like, oh my gosh. But as history knows, the purists massively rose to the top. There was always a popularity contest in Cali. In Command and Conquer, there was less of this kind of political high school like popular thing, and most people definitively had me at like the best Command and Conquer player. But StarCraft and or sorry, Warcraft 2, there's a bunch of egos. I don't think I was ever the best. Like Gadianton was definitely better than me in Warcraft 2. But there was just like so much political, like, oh, this guy's good, this guy's good. And I'm like, really? I don't know. I mean, we really need like a world championships to kind of prove this. And that didn't exist for Warcraft 2, which thankfully existed for StarCraft. So the first tournament, like I said, was about April 1998 at Neutral Ground, Mountain View, which was literally a neighboring city to Cupertino, which is Apple headquarters, and Superstars, which eventually became Channel Fireball. And then at that juncture, it's like, okay, I've already done what's available for StarCraft and vanilla StarCraft. So that summer, I was just like, okay, I'm done. Then Gadianton, Jay Severson, co-founder of chess.com, who's one of my best friends, of course, yanks me out of retirement. He signs up to PGL, which is the Professional Gamers League. And I was like, what's that? He's like, oh, they have StarCraft in season three. I'm like, oh, I want to play. And then I go to the signups and I'm literally off by one day.
Hmm.
So I'm like, oh well. But the thing is, as history would have it, it's almost better that this happened for StarCraft that I didn't play in season three because it made me motivated to be a content creator. So along the way for season three, I was helping with the battle reports and so a little context. PGL, Professional Gamers League, I think Nolan Bushnell, like the creator of Chuck E. Cheese and like somebody affiliated with Atari, like ran it or was a investor. And then there was gamers.com, which this name's kind of lost in history, but is super important, which is Dennis Fong, Thresh. He's a five-time first-person shooter world champion, Doom 2, Quake 2, esports Hall of Fame. But at that time, he was just dubbed the Michael Jordan of esports. He was undefeated in tournaments. He was in Time Magazine, it was Wall Street Journal, San Jose Mercury News, World Journal, just he was on TV. So while Faker and League of Legends are huge now, the context of going from 0 to 1, a la Peter Thiel, Thresh is the one that did that and inspired all of us to kind of step up and stop being a chat pro shit talker and like actually win and like stand tall and have trophies. So I think that's kind of lost in history while people know about him, but they don't really know how he truly lifted us all and paved the way and inspired us to all be the Thresh of our games. That being said, so he started gamers.com, and of course there's a GX StarCraft section that's run by Calbear, Bob Kaleko, I believe you know him too. He's just an industry legend. So they were the ones that kind of had me be the first commentator because I was just like trash. Like, oh, I'm one of the best players, blah, blah, blah. And usually people who say that aren't the best players. I happen to actually be one of them. But I proved, I'd show them, I'm playing with Guillaume, Gadianton, Maynard, all these other top players. And, I show them that I'm playing them and I'm doing well. So they had me be the first StarCraft caster ever in the tournament.
Mm.
And the top eight, I knew like six of them. It was Gadianton, Guillaume, Tillerman, Maynard, Tantalus. I knew all those five. I didn't know Jolly. I didn't know Locus. I don't remember who the last guy was, but Jolly and Locus, I ended up meeting and playing against them. And they were pretty solid, but I don't think they were the caliber of like the top Cali and BNet players. Nothing to sneeze about. They definitely were like, top A in the world at the time. So Gadianton ends up winning, and he's one of my best friends. So, if I'm not going to win, might as well be him. Um, and that kind of changed my trajectory to be like supportive as a competitor and a content creator. And Thresh, his brother Cross, and Calbear basically came to me and were like, "Do you want to run GX StarCraft?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And this is when there were basically very few tournaments. There was that neutral ground tournament that we played in PGL. This was the first StarCraft World Championship. It was the vanilla StarCraft. And I basically set out to just like be a competitor and content creator aside from Thresh. For StarCraft, I was definitely the first one, but literally the only other person who did this was Thresh. So I was just kind of, like I said, following after his lead. At that time, the Koreans actually were playing.
Mm.
The two top players in Korea were Honest SG from Silkybang SG clan. He went by Shinju Young. I think he won. He had the highest elo or won something season three vanilla, or yeah, it has to be season three vanilla because it wasn't Brood War yet.
Mm.
Season three or season four. One of those. It was December. If you look at Wayback Machine, you can look up that a Korean won the last vanilla StarCraft season before Brood War.
Okay.
And we all knew of each other. I hadn't gone to Korea yet. So I on GX StarCraft, I set out to do tips of the day, strategies, of course, did patch reviews. Zilius and I were like rivals in the content space because he was touting how imbalanced it was, which it was. I'm not disputing that. But he was a Protoss only, whereas like Gadianton and I like randomed. So look, Gadianton's like one of my best friends. I honestly thought he was the best Protoss player of the era. I derive like probably half of my strats from his influence. But Zilius was like the king of like the shuttle Reaver drop and just like
Mm.
basically dropping the Reaver, it shoots and pulls it back up, which Blizzard nerfed. So it's not that Zilius can't do other things. He was just most known for that. Once Reavers got nerfed, he just like couldn't do that anymore. So the thing is, at that time, there were two players who notably always randomed, me and Gadianton. Guillaume sometimes random. So we were like such like enthusiasts and purists. And even PGL season three, Gadianton won randoming the whole way. And then when GX Starker came out, there were no tournaments, or we had to wait for the big tournaments. So I created some exhibition games, like Cali vs. BNet. Um, yeah, I did a series called Pimpus Plays in which like when the top players or whatever did some cool move, I would like record it and like do screenshots. Of course, it's pre-replays. I remember one of the cool ones was Kane the Feared. Um, had an arbiter, I think, and he like froze. He was getting rushed up
Mm.
one of the ramps in Temple, and then he froze a probe on the ramp, and then it just like and just like it clogged everything.
Uh-huh.
There were so many things. But then what happened was to all of our fortune, and this was just all like the stars aligning. Like I was doing content, I was a competitor. PGL season four at StarCraft. Blizzards ran the season one, season two ladder world championships and the official world championships. August of 99, Sports Soul had something. And then when Guillaume and I were there, they ran a tournament of champions. So that year, 1999, it was the first year that honestly allowed for professional StarCraft.
I see.
And there were a bunch of exhibition stuff, which was honestly just an excuse for people to see Guillaume and I play. So, because it was like, people, I ran GX StarCraft, so I was far more accessible than Guillaume. But I would get emails, I would get forum posts, I get like messages. At that time, it was ICQ. It'd be like, when are you and Guillaume playing it? I'm like, dude, I have enough headache playing him on ladder. But then I'm beating him in Cali, which is exhibition. He beat me like 3-2. Canada versus USA, I beat him like 1-0. Uh, Tournament champions, which is not publicized. I didn't play him. I think they lost to Sam Jang. I just assumed Guillaume won. Either Sam
Hmm.
Jang or Guillaume won. I don't remember which one. But there was just like all these things. Like Guillaume and I basically just met each other in every major tournament, no matter when we got matched. Thankfully, most of the times it was later than earlier. And yeah, just these exhibition matches, we just happened to be like matched against each other to, the fans at that time's delight. The most viewed battle report on gamers.com between him and me reached 300,000 views, which maybe today is like not that big, but you have to understand the internet was like so small.
Yeah.
And when, I got that number, I'm like, oh, cool. And I didn't realize at the time how dominating that number was because that crushed everything before that. It crushed Quake, it crushed Street Fighter, it crushed Magic, like 300,000. And that's probably the jumping off point to the first sign that StarCraft was going to be the esport that took everything to the next level. Like
Gotcha.
that amount of clicks. So I have this, everybody can Google this, but there was the qualifications for season one BattleNet, which Guillaume and I qualified. Came the Fear, Crazy Jim Lizard, Shinju Young, the top player in Korea. And then PGL, the top eight was me, Guillaume, Pillars, Boo. Anyway, there's a lot of repeat names. Again, most notably me and Guillaume. And then we would just go at it. And then the yeah, I would like every single tournament match, I would literally write a battle report and release it faster than Blizzard and PGL. So it was just a huge treat for the audience. And now I just feel so outdated because there's replays. I'm like, oh man, why did I have to do that? But no, and that's when I didn't know who was reading and who was watching. So, this StarCraft commentator or a couple of them that we all know, unbeknownst to me, was really excited about this stuff. One guy's name is Tasteless, and the other guy's name is Artosis. And nobody knew who they were back then. And they were reading my stuff. And I met Tasteless's mom like at Frost Giant even like 2 years ago. And I was like almost in tears because I didn't even realize I had some influence on some of these people. And there's people like over the years who are just like, dude, what happened to you? And I realized it was like kind of my fault for not keeping up. Anyway, the whole thing is like GX StarCraft at that time, aside from the Blizzard site, was like the site to go to, and probably was the site to go to because I would do updates almost every day. And I would do like battle reports of just like ladder matches, which is they just had to take my word for it that we were top players. But in retrospect, it's like, oh, I could have just been lying like the whole time. So, you know, uh, as Guillaume said in his podcast, Zerg was just OP.
Mhm.
That being said, everybody had the tr most trouble against Maynard, and he was Terran.
Oh.
And yeah, it was really interesting. And this is vanilla StarCraft, so Terran was like probably definitively the worst race. And we just had so much trouble with him because he would just, defense power, defense map control. And Guillaume is like, man, you guys who haven't played against him, he's just like such a nightmare to play against. Um, he started with Zerg and these like Ling Hydra or Ling Muta. And Hydras, it's just unlimited Hydras. And what he was really good at in that era, let's talk about like StarCraft Vanilla first and then getting into Brood War. It's just like his APM was probably the second highest of the competitors. I think Gadianton was first, Guillaume was second. I'm like somewhere fifth through 10th. But it's just like Hydras. And then he had this innate sense if he was losing or he wasn't going to win the battle, he just like recoils. And then the next time he comes, he just has like so many more Hydras than the other guy or units. It was just like like are you kidding me? This is insane. And then Maynard would be the endless string of Marines. Um, the thing about Gaddington and I is we're pure gamers, so we like to random, and even though we knew there were imbalances, we like didn't care. So he and I like got to like really high elos, just like, playing whatever. Because it's StarCraft, it's a real-time game. So if you had a high enough APM, you could fade so many disadvantages. And if your strategies were clever enough, you could fade a lot of disadvantages. So
Mm-hmm.
in vanilla StarCraft, Reavers just utterly annihilated Terran. It's like the range is only a little bit smaller than a siege tank, and you could drop and they instantly fire. It's just like ridiculous. So anytime I got Terran and I was against uh Protoss, like I would try to, navigate and figure out how to best dissuade the Reaver drop and just go quick wraiths. And it was like if I'm against myself, my Terran would never be my Protoss. But because other people just weren't as fast or clever or whatever, I was able to fade it. And then that's kind of like, you test yourself, you test your APM, you test your creativity, you test your strategies, and Gadianton and I faded playing random for like a very long time.
Mm.
Fast forward to the BattleNet Season 1, which by the way does count as the World Championships. Zoom up here. I get snubbed so bad from the internet and AI. They're like they're like, oh, yeah, season 1 ladder was in the world championship. I'm like, the trophy says I'm a world champion. Jesus.
There you go.
So yeah, it was a top 16, and I mean, all these tournaments, Guillaume and I just like steamrolled just everybody until we face each other. There's like a couple tough matches in between, but in general, that's kind of what happened and why people were so excited to see us battle. It's because everybody can play early game. A lot of competitors can play mid game, but the thing is, the game usually ends at mid game, and I'm fairly sure 90% plus of the games that went to late game were just all me and Guillaume because it's like early game's not over, mid game's not over, you know. And
Mm.
then they get to see like all these cool ass units. And let's be honest, for today's standards, Guillaume and I are terrible, or at least our performance then, but at least we got there.
Yeah.
So that was just like, our games were like 40 minutes, sometimes even like 55.
Wow.
Uh, Whereas our games with other people is like 12 minutes, like 20 tops. And yeah, it was like I said, we're good friends, but he and I also want to win so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think people can like feel it through the battle reports too. Um, so one of the most intense games I played, Guillaume's career, he's 4 years younger than me, so he went on to Korean superstardom. The semifinals of the Ladder One tournament slash world championships, Guillaume had 3 fourths on the map. He was Zerg. I ran him into Protoss. I think he ran him into Zerg. He either picked or randoms. And he owned 3 fourths on the map. And I patiently waited for the upgrades to be like 3-2-2 in the Forge. And then no one had ever seen this. And I was told at Blizzard, they were like Blizzard when they were watching our matches, they were just like on their feet, just like, holy shit. So I did a three-way attack. On the left side, it was DTs and Corsairs and some Zealots, because I could, shove the Overlords out and the DTs would be free to hit.
Uh-huh.
On the right side, I had Shuttle, Reaver Archon. So if he had Mutas or Guardians, I could just like drop the shuttles right under the Guardians and the Archons would hit or, whatever and kill the Mutas and then the Reavers would hit. And then down the middle was kind of your standard Protoss Nightmare, which is like Zealots, Dragoons, Templars, and then once you storm, you just like merge the Templars. So no one had ever seen that before because it never came up. Like there's just no circumstance where somebody controlled that much of the map and then somebody had to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, and then just came back from that. Um the finals was against Chris Lowe, but his actual name's Crexus from Warcraft 2. He's also a very good player. There was a lot of trash talking Theory StarCraft before that happened. They said, and this is like Crexus and Stratus are good friends from Canada. They're good guys. They're just like lurkers are too powerful. Like I'm gonna destroy you with them. I'm like I'm gonna fight you. And then I'm just like Reavers are too powerful. Like I'm gonna destroy you with Reavers. So that's where, Theorycraft meets at the biggest stage, the face off. So I acknowledge Lurker's very, very good, and he got me with them, but I got him with the Reavers, even the nerfed Reavers. So we were 2-2 all the way to the finals. And I did race pick if the map was just like too lopsided. Um, this was another one of my most memorable matches. Crexus outplayed me. I call him Crexus. Chris Lowe. I call him Crexus. That's his original name. Outplayed me very hard in the beginning. He value towned some exchanges like um with an opening, and then he won the Wraith and Cliff War. So I lost the Cliff War in Showdown, and I came back to win. And everyone I was told at Blizzard, they're just like, oh, Jesus, this is like ridiculous. So what I did, and I didn't even know I had any this time. I did, instead of going mech, I just did infantry all upgrades.
Hmm.
Crexus had all the cliffs with siege tanks. So I stem one Marine, had it run, and then all the tanks shoot. Then I send in the rest of the Marines, Wraiths for vision, Ghost lockdown,
Huh.
as many siege tanks as I could. Then infantry shoot up, siege tanks shoot up, and I literally did that the entire way. And those two games, I definitely earned the W's. I'm sure about the other games, but I definitely earned the W in those. So that was amazing. I won the first, I was the first world champion for Brood War. Gadianton did vanilla, but I did a random and he did a random for vanilla. So that kind of set the precedence for like our passion and our love for the game. And I'm so glad that Flash, who's become, the greatest StarCraft player of all time, he ended up randoming because that just shows it's more about the love and the mastery. Of course, nothing wrong with race picking, but it's just that's kind of a tribute to how special the game is. And then the next month, that was April of 99. The next month was May 99. That was PGL season 4, and that was still vanilla StarCraft. So they flew me, Guillaume, Kane the Feared, Pillars, Boo to New York. Um, I had a really bad fever. Um, I do not think it affected my play, or at least I played well enough where I'm never going to say I that affected my play. But the one of the most intense matches I had was with Guillaume on Dire Straits. I had an amazing, if not perfect, opening. So this is one of the things in StarCraft in the beginning, a lot of people just didn't do the simple math. So when people have the muta war Zerg versus Zerg, they would just go mutas. But if you could do scourges, you hit the muta with one scourge, and then you could finish it off with a muta really quickly. So my opening against Guillaume, I just landed like 4 scourges and 4 mutas and just like had 2 mutas like finish them off.
Mm.
So I had such a huge head start, but somehow I lost. But it's Guillaume, right? Whatever. So, but yeah, I lost that, and somehow he had more gas. So I was wondering if like 4 drones on gas actually did more than 3. And I guess in certain positions they did. I don't know to this day whether he had 4. I could ask him, but people did research, and I guess 4 drones on gas,
Oh
does
wow.
get a little more. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, something, and then I, got in second, and Guillaume got first. Um, some of the things that, well, I don't know. I presume I know Gadianton and I, because we're friends, we talk. We knew about some of the math. It's more like me telling him because he's just like, whatever. I just win. But I presume Guillaume, Maynard, and Pillars knew this stuff, which was what gave us an early edge was just doing basic math. So Zealots, their attack was like 16, and Zerglings had 35 hit points. I don't know if this is like basic knowledge now. Hopefully it
Yeah,
is.
it
It's
is.
ba okay, yeah, so it's basic knowledge, but the thing is like people didn't do that back then. So if you just upgrade attack with the zealots, then it takes 2 hits instead of 3 to kill the zerglings. But if you respond by upgrading carapace, then it goes back to
Right.
3 hits. Yeah, so this is I just presumed it was basic knowledge at this point, but that was one of the things that allowed us some easier victories than we probably should. Um Yeah, just the scourges and just like unit combos. Just yeah, just doing basic math like really helped. So what really helped professional StarCraft after those two, which Yam and I were lucky, they were just like simultaneous and back to back, was the Sports Soul tournament. That was when Korea invited me, Guillaume, Gadianton, Everlast. I don't know if there were any foreigners, but even then we were called foreigners, even before the Korean dominance. And we
Huh.
were just like treated like royalty. Like everybody knew who we were.
Oh, very
We
cool.
yeah. And then yeah, even like Sports Soul, Sports Daily, we had interviews, at least me and Guillaume did. And the Sports Soul tournament, which Guillaume came in second, I came in fifth, and Gannington came in tied eighth through 16th. We're a little, and it's all in the past, and of course we're lucky to get the invite to begin with. But we were so fortunate to get the invite and stuff paid, like hotel, even though it was like a cramped hotel. But I don't think we didn't get to see the maps, but I get the feeling some people who played had access to the maps.
Oh, okay.
Def Definitely October who won. It's like
Right.
Guillaume was just like slaughtering October. And then somehow there's like backdoor to like Guillaume's base. So just like somehow like 12 Zerglings come in and backdoors into Guillaume and just like kills his base.
Huh.
In my game against Digama was, obviously really good, especially for that time period. Like I'm searching for an expansion, and it's just like the pathing of my drone, and just like, where's this expansion? So it's like you had to like actually know where it was, and then you path to it. So it took me a lot of extra time to get to that expansion. Whereas like normally it's like Lost Temple or whatever, it's like or it sticks, it's like literally right next to there. So I got my expansion late, and Degama got his like fairly early. I guess I could have searched better. I don't know. But the thing is, the maps were not revealed to us. And for Gadianton, the game he lost, he got off cannon, which he's like, "What? I don't even know what the map looks like."
Hmm.
It's a good experience in that, look, we're proven and we should be tested. But I just, especially October, kind of get the feeling that some people saw the maps beforehand.
I see.
And that was, yeah, a little annoying. And then Larry the Weird, who was Honest SG's manager, got me, Guillaume, Sam Jing, and Everlast in a Tournament of Champions thing, and it was recorded on VHS. Um, I lost to Sam Jing round one. He cheesed me, whatever. But there are records of us playing. That was VHS, PGL. I'm sure the resolution's terrible, but they exist. Maybe it's lost in time. And Blizzard definitely saw the season one of the World Championships. I don't know if they recorded it, but they were definitely viewing it. Um, and then the Sports Soul one, I don't think that was recorded. But the funny thing about the Sports Soul one was after the tournament, Koreans were so obsessed with StarCraft, and they wanted like the four best Korean players against the four best foreigners. So it was just like me, Guillaume, Gadianton, and probably Everlast. This is the only time ever Guillaume and I ever played on the same team. But just like it was like hunters and just like they just lost so fast. But then the World Championships that year is kind of when Koreans started to catch up. Like they're just playing like every day, and there wasn't an infrastructure for foreigners to play. Also, it's an advantage for me overall to be working on StarCraft and getting paid. But as a competitor, I'm gonna fall behind because like I'm not there day in and day out, like practicing with the top players. So that's when the world championships, that's when things kind of like started evening out,
I
where
see.
the foreigners and the Koreans were like this. And then timing wise, that's when the .com was about to crash. So while there was money feeding into esports, that was kind of like my cue to be like, okay, what am I gonna do in the future?
Right.
It's kind of obvious, like I'm Asian American, so and my parents are very heavily into academics. And while my mom especially was like, okay, I did this temporarily, I knew she wanted it, knew her, my family, and everybody wanted me to go back to school. So yeah, that was one of the decisions that prompted me to, kind of wave goodbye to StarCraft in that era. There's a couple other factors. .com crash, parents. There's some things that could have swayed things, but at that time the practicality was low. That it like the next year, unless you moved to Korea, and even if you
Right.
didn't move to Korea, there's no guarantee that we would have had that massive opportunity in 1999, tail end in 98 and 99, to support this, and also me having a job,
Right.
doing all this stuff. So, um, and Keon was just, 4 years younger than me, so things were not going to get any better for me. He actually retired the same year that I retired, so I was checking that for the 4 years after. But yeah, it takes its toll. It's like it's we know it's StarCraft is an intense game,
Hmm.
and it just you can burn out. Um, and the cost of living in California is nowhere near what it is now, but it was still, among the highest in the world. But yeah, that was kind of at least the competitive stretch, competitive and content creation, and you know, very memorable. It's StarCraft, as we know, is a very special game.
Yeah.
And I kind of get snubbed because there's no replays, but luckily this guy named T Tasteless and Artosis like remember me and just can necro me out. But yeah, that's kind of the abridged story of how it got to that stage. And then I, of course, am watching Guillaume, who's a good friend of mine, just shoot up into superstar. And I'm just like really proud of him. And it's just, yeah, super, super cool. And
Hmm.
then Slayer's Boxer comes after that. Then there's like Nada, Jadon, Flash, and of course, many people between Garimto is a good friend of mine. It was a really beautiful thing to kind of pass the baton. And again, once Slayer's Boxer hit that superstardom echelon, I just couldn't be more proud of StarCraft and esports in general. And when Flash randomed after, race picking to dominance, I was like, yeah, that's how you do it. That's how you show love for the game, is when you just like, I don't care. I don't care about winning anymore. This is I'm the best. I'm gonna random and then just see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a bookend. Wow.
And then
Awesome.
yeah, and then StarCraft 2 comes out, and I was going through some family issues, but I played the beta and I made number one in the sub ladder, but like I'm just completely out of the age range. And at this like I don't know if you played the beta, but the Reapers were just like stupid and like roaches were just stupid. And it's just like if I was of the appropriate age, now like 12 and older, I probably would have kept going because real-time strategy is in my blood. But you like real-time strategy is the first game you age out of, the first genre.
Yeah.
Then you age out of Street Fighter and first-person shooters, and of course, Magic and Hearthstone. Technically, you can play for the rest of your life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was like a life story. I mean, I know it was
Yeah,
only a year and a half, as it sounds like, but there was a lot take in. So I do want to hone in, and get some more specifics throughout that timeline. So we got how you got into StarCraft, but you were mentioning that you were into Warcraft, you were into Command and Conquer. Can you actually kind of give the audience out there who are were either young or maybe not even born at that time, kind of the picture of RTS in the late 90s?
Oh my gosh. So RTS in the late 90s started with Warcraft 1. And there were, it's humans and orcs. I remember the orc side more. So it's like grunts or whatever the hell they were called, and then archers, and then wolf riders, and then these mages that summon demons. And the world just had never seen anything like it, like that genre. So me and Stanley, especially, but our whole high school group, would just like play, play, play. And Stanley was the best at that time, and just I just it's so outdated for today. But when you come from an era of like Pac-Man and Super Mario Brothers, the first player versus player groundbreaking game was Street Fighter 2. That's just hands down deserves credit. Like when Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2, there was after Street Fighter 1, which was called Fighting Streets, came out. That just blew everybody away. We were just like dumping quarters in. The second game would be, I guess, Doom 2. Doom 2 and Magic the Gathering are about the same time. And then RTS was the fourth. And then when like Warcraft 1 came out, it was just this is insane. There's nothing like this. So probably some all-nighters. It's been a while. But that was the first one. And then Command and Conquer 1, which came out in 1995, that just put RTS on a completely different level. And Westwood games and Blizzard games work differently. So in Westwood, you build the same building and then it increases or lowers the build speed time. So Command and Conquer 1, there was GDI and Nod, and they did a really good job for like splitting the abilities. Obviously, StarCraft did it way better and three races, but they Westwood did a really good job because you had flamethrowers, grenadiers, infantry, medium tanks, recon bikes, buggies, Hummers, uh, med tanks, say siege tanks, like mammoth tanks. So like StarCraft had a lot of elements from that Command and Conquer, and at least in one versus one, this is what gave me a really big edge in StarCraft is my intellectual curiosity in Command and Conquer. Because I just did everything. Like Command and Conquer 1, I defined like probably 90% and arguably 100% of the metagame. And GDI had a disadvantage against Nod. And then at some point, I was like, I don't care. I'm playing GDI.
Uh,
And just, it was fun. One of my good friends and mentors at the time was Bill One. He was the best player before me. He mentored me. Shout out to William Mesidis. He's going to love hearing that shout out. He ends up being really successful. He was like the CMO of Slack, Salesforce, and
well,
somewhat. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. And anytime like I'm out there, he just loves it and like smashes a like. And it's just like, I always shout him out for the Command and Conquer days. But he was 4 years older than me. So the funny thing is when I was beating him, he had the feeling that I felt when Guillaume was just like
you're right.
just a tank like coming up. And I'm just like, yeah, on like you just age out of these things and it's a wake-up call to become an adult.
Right.
So Command and Conquer, that was amazing. There was one tournament. It wasn't for cash. I think I got third, but I don't know. There's some stuff that was against me, but whatever. Anyway, I got third, and then Command and Conquer kind of came to a close. It was just like everybody knew who the top players were, and the pool was just like smaller. The Warcraft 2 pool was probably like 2.5 to 3 times as big. And for me, I'm just like I was so thirsty for more competition. And there were overall many more good players in Warcraft 2. My shout out to my team was actually shout out to my team for Command and Conquer was Synergy was my high school friend. So it was Stanley who was Halcyon, Lone Lu, Tiramisu, Eric Wu D, CK Broiler, Cornelius, and Jukum. We got to number one until like the other top players just stacked their own team, and I couldn't fade it anymore. Um, and then in Warcraft 2, when team was C4L, we had like Super Peon, Wuha, Mencius, Lysius, Warbringer. Warbringer actually was we brought him over to StarCraft 2, but he was in Singapore. I don't know what happened to that guy. But Warcraft 2 was much more competitive. We got to number one in teams first. And then but the one-on-one, there was like, a lot of good players. And I'll be honest, like we don't even know who the best Warcraft 2 player is because there was so much political, like, oh, he's the best, he's the best. It's like, okay, well, let somebody throw together world championships as let's see. There were some Warcraft 2 like tournaments, but it was, it's for nothing. It's just for exhibition. But yeah, Gadianton, Incinerate, um, Tillerman, like um Metal. Who was Metal's teammate? I'm honestly so glad I'm snubbing him because he was kind of a jerk. Tantalus was there, and we ended up doing well in StarCraft. Maynard was there, but I think his name was Lord Helmet. There was Stratus and Crexus. There's a slew of like tier one and tier two like Warcraft 2 players, and it was really fun because Warcraft 2, even though there was one predominant strat, which is bloodlusted ogres, it just the speed, the camaraderie. Oh, this is about map design. So this was the great thing about Warcraft 2 is maps were imbalanced, but that made the game more interesting. So Garden of War, Plains of Snow, as everybody knows, carried over to StarCraft. Um, all the maps had a best spot and like a worst spot and like some stuff in between. And we were all just like evaluating. But it's like if you had one of the bad spots and you beat somebody in one of the good spots, it's just like this weird like ego boost that, oh, not only did I win, I beat you with like a worse spot, which it does happen in StarCraft, but it wasn't as lopsided as Warcraft 2. So Garden of War, there was like a clear worst spot, which is the bottom left. I don't even remember which there were three or four like premium spots. But it's like Warcraft 2, if you're the bottom right and the guy happened to be the one you're left, he can off tower you. That there's just so many cool dynamics in Warcraft 2 that wow, it was so much strategic depth for basically just having a singular primary strategy, which was bloodlusted ogres. And then off tower sappers, death knights. It was like an alternative strategy based on the map. And of course, water maps was something that Command and Conquer didn't have. So I definitely C4L definitely hit number one in teams. Like I said, I know I hit top five in one-on-one, but the thing about Warcraft 2 is Case's ladder, whoever is squatting number one can just like dodge you. And that's like really distasteful for me and like Gadianton.
Hmm.
Like in Command and Conquer, I'm just like play, 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 play. There were times when I was like in the final, I had finals, and Bosco, who was like number two, he was like kept asking me to play. I'm like, dude, I can't play. And it was like a week or something. He's like, dude, like I want a shot. I don't care if you win. I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna report a loss just because I feel bad. And then after finals, of course, we play. But just like if you wanted to dodge other people below you in Case's ladder, you could. And I vaguely remember that was kind of happening, all the way up for teams, but also in the one-on-ones. I'm just like, whoever was above me, like one, maybe even two people, like wouldn't even play me. And again, like we're just playing. Like, I don't care if I lose. I just want to play.
Hmm.
Same thing with Gadianton. Like, he's such a talented, like, he's really good at tactics. And it's like this is a kind of a, people talk about macro and micro, and yes, they're a thing, but there's this like kind of in between thing called in micro called like tactics, where you try something and it's a little bit like if it works, it's exploitative, but if it doesn't work, it's like solid. It's really hard to explain. That's why I say I derived like probably half of my Protoss game from Gadianton. because he would be really good at Zealots, Dragoons, and Templars. And the one move he did was, I credit him with this, was like, season one vanilla StarCraft. He would have like Zealots, Dragoons, and Templars, and he would have, multiples of two in Templar. So after he storms, again, this is probably just like basic nowadays in StarCraft Brood War and StarCraft 2, is like you just, merge them into Archons. But at that time, it was novel. And Templars were so powerful, it's kind of like, why would I lose my Templars? But Archons were really good against certain compositions, which is, then that's where the decision making and strategy comes in. So yeah, in Warcraft 2, he was just really good at like when you have the grunts or ogres surrounding, just pulling the weak one back, which obviously, carries over to StarCraft. But just like when you deal with somebody who's like really good with that stuff, it's incredibly frustrating, and you
Hmm.
want to match and be better. So Warcraft 2, after StarCraft came out, pretty much everybody ported over to StarCraft. The Cali players who were more experienced than the Battle.net players just were fairly dominant. I mean, I don't remember who the best Cali players were. It was probably me. But like I said, like I race picked in the beginning at Zerg. Some X months down the line, I was like, screw it, random. And Gadianton was also like random. And yeah, we did well. And again, like season one, I didn't know Villard was like playing FFAs for his elo. Season two, I believe, was fairly legitimate. That's the one Zillius and Everlast and Guillaume did really well. And yeah, it was just it was known. And the thing is, like with solid players like Guillaume and me, we would just have our playbooks would be really deep. And so if you were like a one trick pony, you might get to like decent elo, but when you spawn and it's like, "All right, I already know what's going to happen." Like every strategy can be countered reasonably. So they couldn't stand up to the test of, pressure. And that's where it's like a certain group of people, especially me again, it's like you don't know what to expect from either of us, except like a lot of units in your face. But that made it tough. And also ladder play and exhibition games, we're trying to win, but we're not like trying our absolute hardest. When it came to these world championships, that's when our best came out. That's when it's like no more trash talking, no more popularity contests. Whoever wins, wins. And that's something that as pure competitors, it was, very well known and etiquette and respectful. So a lot of people who, not maliciously talking trash, but just like, oh, I'm better than you. I rank these players. Like once these international terms are over, it's like that's it. Just there's no more talk. Like that's, we know who the better players are. Like there's repeat
Yeah.
top play, like repeat winners, repeat top eighters, repeat top 32ers. And yeah, that was kind of the evolution of getting to RTS and of course StarCraft in South Korea. That was an important milestone for esports' explosion. And again, the Godfather, Thresh, was just incredibly supportive. He was supportive of StarCraft. In fact, I think he top 32'd in an international tournament. I think PGL. And
Hmm.
then Thresh has been very supportive of like the first person shooters, especially because that's his bread and butter. So he's been supportive of Fatality. He's been supportive of Counter-Strike. But we just like age out at some point. And I followed the suit of this three people who are massively influential to me. The first person I met was Brian Weissman. He's a Magic the Gathering legend. Before I was competitive any game, he was already like a thought leader in Magic the Gathering. He created the deck. He was in so many pro tours. and I was just one of his Padawans at the Round Table Pizza in Palo Alto. I was just lost in, but he was always like nice to me and taught me stuff. We're very good friends to this day. He actually is the co-creator of Path of Exile. Thresh was number two, just because he was in the news everywhere. He was Asian American. We all played Doom 2, and he wins a Ferrari, which it was like a lower end Ferrari, but like
So cool.
yeah, when you're 18, you like don't care. You're like, oh man, a Ferrari. And it's like when he ran gamers.com, the second office, the Ferrari was in the front office. So the gamers.com era was just super cool because like Thresh, Cross, and Caliber all put their trust in me, and I hadn't won anything yet. I was a top player due to like ranking and elo, but then as GX StarCraft grew, I just like kept piling on trophies and exhibition matches. So while those probably like not probably, they definitely pale in comparison today. It's that kind of like fan foundation that allowed kind of the next level in cooperation with South Korea too, because they spent a lot of effort. So at least on the Western side, we were pushing up, they were pushing up, and it's just, exposure and escalation. Because of GX StarCraft, I got a lot of exposure, and because I got a lot of exposure, Guillaume got a lot of exposure. And then when South Korea had all these televised things, Guillaume got a lot of exposure. Then like Garinto, Slayer's Boxer, all these other people until it got to like Flash, and then we all know what happened to StarCraft Brood War and StarCraft 2 with Blizzard and esports, and that's where kind of League of Legends took over. But it's like in the end, like we know, StarCraft is this special, unique, the highest skill cap esports of all time. So there's this kind of like special slot. And I like I interviewed Slayer's Box for the World Series of Poker, and I hope that you release some of his interview that wasn't displayed in the World Series of Poker. But I asked them, what would you advise for StarCraft 3? And he kind of answered that he would like an expansion for StarCraft Brood War because that's what
Hmm.
defines South Korea. And it kind of makes sense because like I played the StarCraft 2 beta, and let's be honest, it's not the same. It's
No.
not as intense.
Hmm.
It's of course, let's be honest, the second highest skill cap esport of all time. But it's just something's missing about the intensity in StarCraft 2 versus StarCraft 1. And that's what his reasoning was. And I don't think I said this in the interview, but whether it's a boost on StarCraft Brood War or StarCraft 3, this actually fits in all the StarCrafts, but after he mentioned that, I'm like, oh, what my thoughts for a next iteration of StarCraft it could also fit in StarCraft Brood War is having the three races have um this certain basic enhancement. For Zerg, it would be an evolution chamber. You just have, mutation, and you just get random mutation, whether it's claws, carapace, speed, um, some other things, maybe even banelings, or maybe even a mystery one. And for Protoss and the Cyber Core should have an upgrade that there's a slow slash stun proportional to your shields. So if your shields are all the way up, like any unit close to yours, that's basically either stunned or slowed close to stun. And then as your shields are depleted, then it's kind of like, it lets you go. Or you can move normally. And then for Terran, you have like a formation or AI upgrade for infantry separately with mech, which is you could preset the strategy that the infantry or the mech will do, and then you can even have a custom one of like how you want to act. Like, for example, you want a Goliath to just like stay there and not move and not chase. You just have it on like a stationary mode. And then you could change the AI or the command strategy as the game progresses. That of course adds another APM element, which in vein of the game, more APM is better. Faster APM, you just do more stuff. And there's just like a lot of things. I think that's a very basic one. Mike Donay at Blizzard, he's running Hearthstone and an unnamed project that I'm not allowed to talk about that is using the StarCraft IP on top of others.
Oh,
Is yeah, it's they like Blizzard has plans of using the StarCraft IP. It's just things are really slow.
yeah,
And I hope if the IP starts doing really well, then they find a way to monetize for StarCraft 2 or Slayer's Box's idea of, making an expansion on Brood War because I think 5-on-5s just got more popular because, games are camaraderie plus like nobody wants accountability. If you win, you want to say it was all me. When you lose, you want to blame your teammates. In one-on-one, there's nobody to blame. So back in like our generation, we had so much pride in competitive games that Street Fighter, Doom 2/Quake, Magic, RTS, especially StarCraft is just like, we had so much pride in the one-on-one, take accountability for your win. And
yeah,
I think generationally, it's a little not there, but if they find a way to monetize these competitive one-on-one games, I do think there could be a comeback. It's just there's no hub. Everybody knows StarCraft is the highest skill cap game, and it always, or I don't want to say always will be. I don't think anything's challenging that anytime soon. But there isn't enough like fan support, I guess, making the stars as sexy as the way that South Korea did for
mm-hmm.
Gion, Boxer, Jaedong, Flash. And there needs to be that element. Like I don't understand what the Korean commentary was, but you could feel the excitement.
Yeah, yeah.
And when Tasteless and Artosis are commentating, you could feel the excitement and like their love for like StarCraft history. And shout out to them for necroing my name out, like what was it, over 20 years later. So it's funny because when they shouted me out, he immediately, I guess he was watching. He immediately messaged me and he's like, dude, go to this go to this stream at this time. And like, other people messaged me too, but it was a cool moment.
Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things I've learned from all these interviews, and one of them is at least someone who's very established in esports, kind of admitting or saying something that maybe other people wouldn't agree with, which is that even right now with like League of Legends in South Korea, it still doesn't really match what Brood War was in StarCraft in Korea, which is kind of insane to think about, right? With all the way that we can broadcast and all the merchandising and advertisements we have now. That just like there is something really special about that period of time. But rewinding a bit back to the Warcraft 2 conversion over into StarCraft 1, I was reading the what do you call the StarCraft Bible? You said that you read it.
Yep.
And they mentioned Zelius, and I just wanted to get you kind of like more intimate thoughts, right? Because you were there
Yeah.
on what that development was. They talked about how there was a lot more emphasis on macro at that time, and that micro wasn't necessarily seen as important in Warcraft 2, and how he helped change that, or perhaps you all helped change that. So, could you discuss that?
We all helped change it. Zillius was the most vocal, and let's just say, look, Zillius and I have an incredible respect for each other, but his style of communication and execution and mine are almost like polar opposites. He likes um kind of shouting these issues, and they're like mostly right. He's not wrong. And for me, I'm just kind of like quiet, perform, 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 adapt, adapt. It was true. Warcraft 2 was heavily macro. It was just all bloodlusted ogres. The micro is just like pulling the right ogre back, so to say, the injured ones,
Yeah.
and then death and decay. Um, I didn't remember Zilius in Cali. I know he shot up really quickly in BattleNet, especially season 2. Yeah, like season two was the Zilius versus Guillaume show.
I see, I see.
Everlast was number one, but like everything I heard was always like that rivalry was just Zerg versus Protoss. And look, we all know Guillaume's a fucking beast. So, excuse my language. And Zilius is gonna get some games with Reavers, but like when you have endless Hydras, it's just like you have to play against it to really see it and believe it. I'm sure like there are a lot of players today that are, really strong and can do similar things. But at that time, it's like, oh gosh,
I
more
see.
Hydras. But yeah, so Zilius, to his credit, in a macro-based game, was really good with shuttle reaver drop and just microing. But it was also, and this is me being vocal back to him, it's like reavers were overpowered and reavers got nerfed. But again, that doesn't take away from his ability for the shooting shuttle, which is like that takes an incredible amount of skill. Command and Conquer 1995 was all micro. And that's kind of the reason that he and I got into it
I see.
is because it's like he didn't name me like specifically, but I felt that StarCraft um was doing justice to both sides, having played and done well in Warcraft 2 and Command and Conquer. Command and Conquer in 1995 was like heavy micro,
Hmm.
and you needed to understand the units. Like Grenadiers, if you don't play them right, suck so bad. You're throwing a grenade up there and literally hoping where it lands, you know? It's not like machine gun where it's like it's always going to hit, or there's some miss, but it's like it's almost always going to hit. So again, like in StarCraft vanilla, I picked up on this the Scourge thing probably the fastest. So in Zerg versus Zerg, if I see mutas, like I'm gonna have Scourges, I'm gonna go boom boom and then finish it off with Glaive Worm. And that just made me a terror in Zerg vs. Zerg. So when Zilius was doing the Reaver stuff, I'm just like, yeah, it's good, but that's like one play. Why don't you play all the races and all the strats? So that's where him and I kind of like in content were rivalries. But again, like we nothing but respect for him. Plus, he went to MIT. So if you're like an Asian and somebody goes to MIT, you're just like, oh my God, that's sick. And then he had an MBA at Wharton, I think. But so Zilius won the Brood War beta tournament.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of documented, but not really in the forefront. And I'm glad you have this podcast that just kind of knackers a lot of stuff out. And what was significant about that was because Agent 911, who was one of the top Cali players, got second. And there was always this Cali versus BNet thing. And BNet's kind of like the public school, and Cali's kind of like the private school. So there's like this elitism going on. So when and Cali players didn't always compete on BNet and vice versa. So the Brood War Beta was kind of the first tournament that was like, okay, let's see both sides and see how they do. I'm just gonna say Guillaume and I were not invited to the Brood War Beta tournament, so
Oh, that's
but
right.
but it's okay. But like Agent 911 and Zilius were very good representations. Like they were definitely top players of each side. And then Zilius winning is kind of like a big FU to Cali. And that actually inspired me to do the BNet versus Cali, which was never finished for GX StarCraft. But that was a big lesson because I thought I was so clever and I was gonna have popular vote plus elo plus like performance and just like mesh this all into a rating system to pick. And it's like, nope, egos just egos and loud voices.
Mm.
So Guillaume and I were placed seed two, which he and I in the end were just kind of like, whatever, we don't care, we just want to play. Gadianton, who actually won the vanilla like StarCraft World Championship, was placed, I don't even remember, like fifth or eighth or something. I'm just like, is this the unhappiness of people's like ranking and egos just like got to people's heads. So it was and Incinerate and Zilius were like the top seed. And as history would would also support. Everyone just wanted to watch me and Guillaume play. So whatever. It doesn't matter what seed we are. We could have been 100th seed. Just like they would, they would watch us play. But that was kind of the inspiration for BNet versus Cali because there was always this verbal debate, and in the end, it's kind of like, well, let's just throw down and see. And that was after the PGL. I don't know if the Brood War beta tournament was paid, but the PGL season three, Gadianton won, gosh, $8,500, which when you're like 19 or 20 years old is a lot of money.
Hmm.
Today, it's probably like, double, maybe even triple that in value. So then, like I said, these exhibition games plus like Canada versus USA were just an excuse on top of like me reporting my ladder matches for people to have content. And it's the depth of content that kept this going. Another top site, I should have mentioned this too, StarCraft.org. Shout out to John Riley, Hone. Oh, I didn't even mention all the cheating scandals.
I'm sure there was quite a few.
Yeah, we could get into that. I just completely remember. But John Riley was really integral in like picking out like cheating scandals as they were emerging. He's like the who Joe Ingram is in poker today. But yeah, John Riley was also integral when we all went to Korea. He was a white guy who could speak Korean fluently. So he was like translating for us. He was our groupie yet our guide, but he's just this super good guy. And even to this day, it's just, yeah, amazing guy. But StarCraft.org was the definitive news site. And it was funny because I ran GX StarCraft alone, and StarCraft.org had like a staff, I would say around 10, maybe 15. I don't know, ask John Riley. But he was always like a chip on his shoulder. He's like, oh, we got to compete against GX StarCraft. I was like, why? And then he said he realized that was stupid because everybody's just kind of like lifting each other. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
And yeah, that was huge. I'm like, I did interviews for, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember this. I did interviews for him. I did interviews for Fuzzy Bear, who ran Canada versus USA. But just like there was all this content that just like lifted the entire scene before replays. And of course, once replays are out, it was going to do well. But that lifting kind of kept written content on the map. And then that, once replays came out, just, facilitated content and fandom and what people could read about me and Guillaume battling. Now they see Guillaume battling Garimto and them playing Slayer's Boxer. It's like now 3D form, which is what was necessary for esports to, take it to the next level.
Of course.
And sorry, this was back to Zilius. Zilius after the Brood War, winning the Brood War beta tournament, he kind of had he didn't have to prove very much more. He proved his point. He proved his loud voice wasn't just whining in the dark, so to say. He was a player, he was a theorist, he was highly educated. He went to so when BNet vs. Cali came out, Zilius was in his rusty form and it was very unexciting. But he had to go back to school. He had to grow up. When he graduated from MIT, he went to work for Warcraft 3.
Right. Yeah.
And he was an integral part of that, the originality for that, which is like the heroes concept. I think Rob Porter was working on that too. But it's like it was Warcraft 3, very successful. Yes, not as successful as StarCraft, but it's just like it brought out so many interesting concepts, and that's what old school Blizzard did and middle school Blizzard. And then of course MOBA spawned from that, Dota, and kind of like Zilius went to Riot. Um, I'm not sure which champions he created. I think Annie was one of them. He created quite a few champions. Actually, in around 2015, when I was going through a lot of stuff, I applied to Riot, and Zilius was highly recommending me to join, but whoever interviewed me or whatever, like, kind of politically ousted me. It's
Really?
whatever. It doesn't even matter. Like, it's if I got into Riot, then I would have did whatever I could. If I got into Blizzard, I would have done whatever I could. But the timing and politics at those junctures like weren't. Yeah, this is it's a thing. It's a like as we know, same thing with like harassment of women in these companies. It's
Hmm.
like there's certain things that just exist, and when people are threatened. I have a lot of like female friends that are gamers, and they have to go through all this harassment that's just like inhuman. And yeah, so Zilius, great career, Blizzard, Riot, and he's he's just a gaming legend. Shout out to Tom Cadwell.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess speaking of gaming legends, and we're over an hour already, believe it or not. But just like really quickly, for the next couple of questions, I've gone over Maynarding with other people because that's like a really famous term that still kind of existed for years. But what were some other metas that you remember, or not metas, but leaps in game progression, that you or others remember? I mean, you already brought up, for instance, that you were calculating the upgrades. So that was a big leap as far as to now what we consider normal. Is there anything
Basic, right?
else you can remember that now we all consider as normal?
Scourge Muta, that's probably I was definitely the one for that. Pushing Shuttle Reaver behind lines of Zealots and Dragoons. I'm again sure that's like normal now. How to deal with siege tanks with Protoss units. That was like a mystery because if Terran does it right, it's really hard for Protoss to get through. And of course Zerg, but Zerg has Dark Swarm. Um, so kind of navigating Protoss units against Terran setups was a concept of like proactive versus reactive. That was that was one of the many puzzles in the game. Um, and just, for again, me and Gadianton to play random, we had to undergo both sides like very frequently. So it's kind of like a science and an art. Like I said, in the season one ladder tournament that I won, the final game, I lost the Cliff War. I lost the Wraith War. I lost the Cliff War. And just like we see in Slayer's Box, there's times when he just makes these insane comebacks. Like him and I weren't always winning and the other players were not always winning in the beginning. But the fact that we could come back from a deficit was kind of what defined our abilities. So the fact that on the spot I was able to just like figure out, oh, bait the siege tanks with one stim marine and just go in, lock down, and then come in like on the fly. Um, that was never seen at the time. Like I said, Stratus and Crexus were big lurker people. Guillaume was just like endless, just relentless timing, power, expansion. The Maynarding, we all absorbed that. I think Guillaume was the one that adopted the most. I probably adopted it second most, but the thing is, my strategies weren't always like power. Like I had more early game strategies than Maynard and Guillaume. Actually, it was funny because I was watching a Flash game in which he randomed to Zerg and off sunken. And that's actually what happened with one of my games with Guillaume in this tournament too. Was I did 9 pull transition to Muta and off sunken because I knew at that time most of Guillaume's and I matches we go second hatchery because like this is like the crazy thing is because we have so many practice games together. There's like all these mind wars when it comes to like tournament time. So anytime Guillaume and I played practice ladder tournaments, our early game would never work. It would never work. Like whoever was even barely ahead, it just whatever. It goes to mid game and sometimes goes to late game. So that was the context of when we played this semifinal game, and I don't remember what the name was called. It was like huge like this. So if Guillaume was on the other side, I would have just assuredly lost. But if he was at the adjacent side, I was confident I would win. But it turns out he was on this side, so it's still a trek. But then I knew from our practice games the general timing of when he would have mutas and my lings would get there and how much damage they would do. And if I brought two drones off sunken, I think that was enough to tip the scale. And that worked. And then Flash ended up doing it in one of the last tournaments he played, Zerg versus Zerg, and the other guy just was like, well, I've never seen this. But the thing is, it requires you knowing the tempo of what each player is capable of at every juncture. So that's something that's kind of missing in these world championships. Whereas, like, if you're not ready, you're just going to get smacked by the top players. But even the top players, they have so many practice games together that there's just like extra mind game of like,
Uh-huh.
okay, what are you going to do this time? We know when I do this and you do this, what happens and vice versa. Um, Gadianton and I, it's a different story because we're good friends and we just don't really find it interesting to play against each other.
Mm.
But Pillars and I, like lifetime Pillars is like one more games than me. And he he definitely gets annoyed when I say this because it's like anytime it counted, I won. But like in practice games, yes, when we went to PGL season 4, I had a fever and we had 4 practice games and he knew I was sick too, and he knew I was like I'm doing content on top of playing, so I'm not as avid of a competitor. He just like 4-0'd me in practice games, and like I felt so sad and defeated.
Mm.
But then again, when tournament time comes on, that's the difference between practice games, exhibition games, and tournament games is that tournament games like it's on. Like you're just gonna do your A plus game. So then he kind of is whatever. He knows my personality, so he knows I'm just doing this to not embarrass him. But it's like you like, in practice games, like he's just winning against me, but he also knows it's not the actual competition where I'm playing my absolute best. I'm like really trying to win, but I'm also distracted by work. And then he probably understood this more because he went to work for Blizzard. And once you're working, it's just so difficult to be a competitor, even if your job is like aligned as a content creator. It's
Yeah.
just like you're so distracted because you have to spend X amount of energy to make your content like professional or digestible. And then that kind of detracts from whatever amazing talent that you might have in the game. Like it just kind of you're not a purist anymore. And that just it happened with me in poker too. The second I get into content creation is I gain wisdom, but I lose cutthroat and elite performance.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
throughout my life, I've had to like kind of balance those two. Um, Pillars was got to be the best zealot front line, reaver back line player that I knew. Like towards then when I was quitting, like he basically perfected that, which again is like easy to talk about, but difficult to execute. Again, like Zilius was the Reaver drop thing, which I definitely had less issues dealing with it because if you know the Reaver drop's coming, yes, you have to fight where it comes from, but that's all you have to do. You just guess what their approach is going to be and where they're going to drop and then fight it. With pillars like Wall of Zealots plus the Reaver's Bind and some Dragoons, it's that doesn't move. It like doesn't move. You can't like play around it. And if you manage to push it back, like he just moved back. So that was intense. Again, Guillaume and I like in the first few seasons in the ladder matches, it was just adaptation because he and I both hated losing. We love playing against each other because it's so fun, like as a challenge. But just like I can't even remember all the adaptations, but it's just like he does this, I adapt this, he adapts back, like game after game after game. And then that's why the world championship or the international tournaments are so special for the readers, is because like it's meta that is kind of like invisible to the naked eye, whereas like a lot of games there's like Ling Hydra, Ling Muta, Zealot Dragoon, Reaver Templar, or whatever. It's like a very standardish, but you could tell that there was like a lot of depth and a lot of history, I guess, in our games that's just like, why would he do that? Why would he do that? Like, there's something behind it. And then when they try it in the actual games, it doesn't really apply because there's not that kind of like history and confrontation, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
For Maynard, he was a terror in ranked games, but somehow in tournament play, I think he did okay in I2E2 and PGL season 3, he made top 8. Um, but like in that string where Guillaume and I just were playing each other all the time, he wasn't there. Gadianton, he got snubbed a couple times. But yeah, like Guillaume and I were the repeat names. And there was like King of the Fear, there was Boo, Pillars were the other repeat top 8 names, and just, a lot of other good players. But they all contributed. I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember what Kane the Feared did. Kane the Feared's he did a lot of Protoss strat. Like Resilience was known for one thing. Kane was more holistic with the Protoss strats, and of course Gaddington. Gaddington and I just didn't get as much credit for metagame because we weren't purists. So it's like everyone has so few glimpses of what we do,
Uh-huh.
but like, it's just, and if you're just one race, you're more vocal. So like I would rank Gaddington among the top Protoss players. I would rank myself among the top Terran players.
Mm.
But like the Terran specialists would keep repeatedly saying, I'm Terran, I'm Terran, I'm like the GOAT or whatever, I'm really good. I'm just like, okay, where are you? So, so that's where we're all very glad these international tournaments slash world championships come around because there's like no
Mm.
excuses.
Yeah. You mentioned that Korea was already, starting to appear, players starting to already appear, and then eventually kind of leveled out around that Seoul Cup. But I'm interested, I remember who said it. This is also in the Bible, but someone said it, and it's a statement that actually is true, at least for StarCraft to 100%, that Koreans were very good at kind of replicating, that they weren't necessarily the ones who were inventing strategies, but they saw them and then they perfected them. Would you agree? And did you see that play out in real time?
There were two phases. Sam Jang was very original, although he was more into kind of the cheesy strats. But that's also a strategy in itself. So when Sam Jang played me and played Guillaume, he knows we're better powerers. So like, what are you gonna do? You have to go for it. So it just like it made sense. And that's like when I played my match against them, I didn't have much background. So I didn't really think, but yeah, it's rational. It's like if you're playing against somebody who powers better than you, you got to do something else. Um, Honest SG, he was more of the solid, but there was some like interesting stuff. But yeah, there was definitely a period where I'm sure everybody was watching whoever the top Korean players at the time and Guillaume and just like trying to clone it and perfect it. At that time, Guillaume was so far ahead that it took them a while. And then you have people like Garimto and of course like Slayer's Boxer. I don't even remember the names, like HOT Forever, like all these guys that they got to a place where they cloned well and then added something on top. And let's be honest, Slayer's Boxer, the rest is history. That guy's performance in game, on camera, off the game was just like the first. I like to call Guillaume like kind of the first celebrity. Well, technically, like I had the platform and the exposure, and then Guillaume, and then
Mm-hmm.
Slayer's Boxer, obviously to another level. But it's like it if you have the personality and the charm on top of the gamer, that's what it takes. Thresh had that too, but all these stars need to align and the exposure and the tournament scope, and that's what allows you to get there. And that's what allows Flash, that's what allows Faker. It without this like support network of depth. That's why it's like I was bringing out StarCraft.org and SC Legacy and Blizzard. It's like while GX StarCraft was ahead because I was competing and I was telling people what I was doing literally right after I played the game. If it wasn't for all these support networks, it's like you it's not going to grow. So what's the first thing people do? Is copy. If you don't understand, you copy. So there was a period that Korea copied, but that was short-lived. Like,
Hmm.
it's like Slayer's Boxer clearly put Terran on the next level. You're talking about like metagame is like none of us did what
Right.
Slayer's
Yeah.
Boxer did. It was a cute anecdote is um when I met Slayer's Boxer at the World Series of Poker, we introduced ourselves and he's just so giddy and happy because like Samjang was the one who inspired him to be pro. And I was just bringing up his name
Hmm.
and of course Guillaume. And then of course I'm just saying I never play StarCraft as well as you. And he just like grins back at me, you don't know that. We've never played. I'm just like, okay. Super, super
That is pretty
charming
good.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, if I'm in my absolute prime, like there were eras where I was the best. So yeah, if you play me during my prime, then
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
take that. But like, yeah, overall, no, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of like and then after Slayer's Boxer, that's when maybe South Koreans were like, oh, I could be creative in this game again. Whereas, Samjang kind of start off and then there was this like cloning period and then,
Hmm.
there's creative period. And I was watching Jaedong play. It was like he was doing stuff in Zerk. Maybe I did it, but I like if I'm watching it and I'm like, oh my God, that's cool, then I probably didn't do it, or maybe it was like in passing. So two of the moves I saw him do that were so cool was one, it's probably Flash. His Marine was running away and it had like 2 HP or very little. Samjang or Samjang, Jaedong used the Muta to attack the buildings and the Glaive Worm like killed it. And I'm just like, I might have done that, but like I didn't like, it's probably just second nature to him.
Right.
Whereas like I would have to be like, oh, I could do this and then, do that. So that's kind of the difference of when StarCraft came out in my era, it was like this unraveling of like,
Yeah.
cool mystery. And now it's just like mechanical, perfection.
Hmm.
Another one was when Jaedong and Flash battled, and Jaedong used the Overlords to absorb some of the Marine fire or Goliath fire um, from, the front line. So he would have the Overlords in front of his army, and then as they soak some damage, he pulls them back. That did not exist when
Yeah.
we were playing. And that maybe is that second nature or is that normal?
Yeah, no, I don't know if it's actually that normal. There's always those like highlight moments, right? Where those are the opportunity is there and it really works out, right? So I could see that.
Those
Yeah, I
are
should have been
yeah.
clearer in my question because I was thinking your time period, but just to be clear for everyone who's listening, I did mean as far as when games first release. Obviously, as
Oh,
games are out, yeah, Jaedong definitely did his own thing, Flash did his own thing, Boxer definitely elevated Terran, but it does seem like a common trend. StarCraft Vanilla comes out, maybe they're not the best at it, but they learn. Brood War ditto. StarCraft 2, definitely there's a lot of foreigners who they had the strategies and then Koreans came in and perfected it. So just
yeah.
just purely when it's like first coming out, just to be super clear.
I think instead of like calling it South Koreans cloning stuff, I think it's just like different learning styles. So
Hmm.
there's learning styles that clone, which is that one group, and there's creative, which is another group, and then hybrid, and then whatever. It's like we're looking at survivorship bias or results oriented
Hmm.
performances because like I said, Samjang started, he was fairly creative. And then maybe the next wave of better Korean performers were copiers and then, Slayer's Boxer and what. So I think there's kind of like survivorship bias of whatever just seems to be working at the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's a good point. All right. Few more questions. So, do you have any insight into the Blizzard's I guess overview of esports at this very early time? Because you're mentioning that they were watching you play the game. They were up on their feet apparently, really excited. They hosted those ladder tournaments.
Yeah.
Why do you think there was such a big initial appearing interest in competitive gaming for them, and then they seemed to just kind of disappear while Korea built everything up until, of course, the very infamous lawsuit that happened much later.
All the so this goes back to competitive games, esports in the 1990s. All brands wanted these tournaments. Street Fighter 2, the first. Then Magic the Gathering had the Pro Tours. Then Doom 2 and Quake, or Doom 2 and Quake might have were the similar time as Magic the Gathering tournaments. Uh, Blizzard, of course, like StarCraft, they wanted to be a thing. Do these tournaments. It takes a lot of passion and energy, and the people doing it have to love it. Like I contributed a lot the first 2 years of StarCraft, but once the returns aren't there and like my energy's like diminishing, it's too tough. Like you need that kind of young, innocent energy to spearhead these operations and just keep it going because it's diminishing returns. Like when you play a game, you hit a certain level, it's like you try to maximize your potential. Most likely you're not going to be there. Same thing with running these esports. You're going to last as long as the energy takes you. At some point, your eyesight just gets kind of blurred and is uh like it's Zerg versus Protoss again. They're upgrading the attack. It's you just kind of lose that kind of innocent passion that thankfully Tasteless and Artosis still have. You probably do too. I don't watch as much StarCraft too, but it really takes that kind of passion in every single area and aspect of it, plus the funding. So when South Korea has all this passion, you could hear it in the commentators, you could see it in the players' eyes. They want it so bad. They want to be so good at this game. They want to be so passionate about this game. Boxer, Slayer's Boxer, the showsman, every single aspect on there. It's like I'm gonna watch a Serral game, but let's be honest, like personality wise, Serral's not Slayer's Boxer. So it's like it takes everybody to contribute. If um Serral had if he had engagement like I did with the community, that brings it to another level. That's the thing is like when I was in GX StarCraft, I was friends with most of the top players, so I could just like pull them in for interviews and get some insight. And there's this kind of like it's not just a podcast or a Q&A. It's like this camaraderie. Like when StarCraft.org or SC Legacy interviews these players, it's like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? Like when Guillaume and I are interviewing King the Feared or Gadianton, we're like literally like joking around and stuff. And it's a different feel. So, Cyril, if you're listening, bring on your fellow guys or even some old school players and Brood War players and just like, shoot some questions and, have start if Cyril's like analyzing other people's play and giving them tips, like what do you think that does for content? It's,
Yeah.
it's just like it's however the passion you want to take it. And for the audience, like if you're watching Zombie Grove and all these other people, don't take their passion for granted because when they're gone, they're gone. Personal
Mm.
experience. Like, a lot of people ask, they're like, dude, your stuff was so good. I'm like, it's kind of like once replays came out and like I'm older, I'm not able to, be the player that I used to be, or to be honest, the fan I used to be, then it's like, okay, well, my time's done. It's time for Slayer's Boxer's passion to rule over and other things. Like the audience really takes for granted that it's work. It's fun work, but it's still work.
Yeah, it's very true.
When Thresh retired from FPS, that was esports lost a lot. Thresh was amazing. When Quake 3 came out, our whole office was playing. It was a joke. We had the solid players on one team, and Thresh was on one team with all the lesser players, to be
Yeah.
kind. And we were playing Capture the Flag. Thresh won. It's like he
Mm.
just like he did stuff. I'm not an FPS specialist, so I'd never seen anything like it. It's like he was able to rocket when people were going on the jump pads. Like he rocketed himself. Like when he was getting cornered, he rocketed himself like across the room. I'm just like, what? It's like, and he was gone for literally 2 weeks. He either barely played the game before those 2 weeks or literally never played. And he was just going off his into Quake 1 and Quake 2 experience. And then in the one-on-one games, like I don't know FPS that well, but even people who aren't specialists in the game can see when one guy is outplaying the other guy. And it's just like, damn, you know? So of the games that I watched Thresh, it was such a treat for that generation. Of course, I'm sure, there's a lot more advanced stuff, but it's that was what that exposure and dominance and competition is what elevated esports like little by little. So, I was on LinkedIn and this guy was like, "Oh, Faker's like the Jordan of esports." I'm like, "Oh, hold up." It's like there's a lot of bridges up there. And the thing is, it's because of the technology that people are more visible now.
Of course.
Same thing with K-pop. Now K-pop's huge. Back then, it was for Silicon Valley, it was just a small shop called Melody off El Camino in Sunnyvale. It's just like this one little shelf. Like I saw it in your StarCraft Begins video, you have a picture of Shinhwa. Like I
Yeah.
met Shinhwa and I showed you the picture, or you have access to the picture with them, but they all knew who I was. It was so,
That's awesome. Yeah,
but yeah, it was so small back then. And um it's really cool because esports and K-pop kind of grew together and it's
they did.
still they're literally still tied together. So, that's another proud moment for me on the side is yeah.
The impact of StarCraft in like Korea, it is funny to think of, but I would put it the same way, which is that like K-pop and esports have really grown
Yeah.
a very similar path. Um,
They're the platforms just, help so much.
they did, yeah, yeah. But I remember like Gangnam Style, for instance. I swear to God, this isn't a made-up memory. It was played on GSL before it
Cool.
got super popular in America, you know? So like StarCraft fans knew what it was, and then suddenly like your friends in college talking about it too, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun, but kind of I guess a little bit on that topic. One of my final questions is, what do you think is StarCraft's legacy? Like, what is its impact on media, the world, countries, esports, of course, Twitch, whichever you can think of.
StarCraft's legacy, that's a tough topic because it's in a lull, whereas everybody knows the name. It's even mentioned when Elon Musk was presenting Neuralink. It was mentioned a few times if Neuralink does succeed, can you play StarCraft with just your brain? And Elon Musk said, there's going to be different games with Neuralink. Maybe on the StarCraft brand, but just, not in the same vein. StarCraft's always going to be special because it launched esports and is the highest skill cap esports, especially Brood War. But I don't think it's over. I hope it's really not over. I really hope after this next usage of StarCraft IP, the StarCraft IP was used for Hearthstone. I
Mm-hmm.
streamed a bit of that. Got to decent legends. They're again using their IP for other things. It got licensed out to some people in Korea.
Yep.
I hope that Blizzard slash Microsoft figures out a way to monetize real-time strategy so StarCraft 3 can see the light of day. Again, I talked to Mike Donay, shot some ideas out. It's like they're not going to pick me to run. I don't think I have the energy. I could be a consultant or whatever, but like there's a lot of passionate people who can make StarCraft 3 insane. Like we have staff at Frost Giant, rest in peace, Uncapped Games. Like
Mm.
it's former Westwood staff. Like there's there's a lot of passionate and talented people that could really make something special. But of course, corporate needs to see it monetized. Like eyeballs isn't enough for these games. Like I said, I have ideas. There's a ton of people with a ton of ideas, and if there's some execution within Blizzard, it's like, dude, make StarCraft 3. It's one of your most powerful IPs. I remember when the StarCraft expansion came out for Hearthstone, boom, there were so many more people like playing it. And
For
I
sure.
myself dealing with the units, like many of the cards were representing the units like well enough. It was like, oh, yeah, I know this. And that's the thing, because I didn't play World of Warcraft. So when Hearthstone came out, it had all these World of Warcraft things. So I'm just like, okay, cool. This is a really powerful card, like Magic. It's like kind of Magic Gathering for me. It's kind of cold. But then when the StarCraft stuff came out, then like, my identity is tied to like some of those units. So it was like it was just a lot more fun. And that's something that Blizzard can do better. I don't want to say like drop the ball, but some game designs recently have been lazier. But Blizzard, you guys have incredibly powerful IP. Yes, the Warcraft one's more powerful than StarCraft, but all the Blizzard IP is just like so powerful. And that's just so huge. Like, if you don't do the thing where you have this crap game, put Harry Potter on it, put Batman on it, and you actually get some people who are in the forefront or in the future of games, and you attach these IPs, it's like, yeah, it's I like when Warcraft Rumble came out, Ted Park Warblade was working on it. Then I think he changed companies. Warblade's at Blizzard for decades, been at Blizzard for decades. I immediately saw some things that were kind of red flags, but of course I'm on the sidelines, easier for me to say. But it's like if it was close, Warcraft Rumble had potential, but there were several things if they just changed it internally. And again, it's easy for me to be a backseat driver. Internally, there may have been reasons or political struggles.
Of course.
If those were done right, like Warcraft Rumble could have been a thing, and then there could have been StarCraft Rumble. It's like
Yeah.
it's a bunch of like money put in, enough resources, couple near misses, but close. It's close. And if they're able to nail these games down and not stop, like I don't even remember the Blizzard MOBA. It's not Heroes of
Heroes of the Storm.
Yeah, not Heroes of New Earth, Heroes of the Storm. It's like, yeah, you could do Heroes of the Storm, but like do other stuff. So that's what's going to be special. Like Heroes of the Storm, you're following League of Legends, Dota 2, Heroes of New Earth. Like, what are you doing? Like, just yeah, keep it alive, but you're not going to win. Like Riot's
Yeah.
just done too well. Um, Come up with something new like Warcraft Rumble. Get some old industry legends that kind of, tweak some things that might be off and put your IP on it. Put Warcraft IP, StarCraft,
Yep.
Hearthstone, put it on, and your Blizzard, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
We all want you to come back.
It's true. I mean, hopefully they're stirring again. But
I I think they do have the memo internally that's corporate slow and it takes passion.
mhm.
Um, I think that Warcraft Rumble was a good effort. Um, Plus they could add World of StarCraft someday. It's just there's so many things that can be done. It's about it being spearheaded. Again, Mike Donay, knock on wood, has his project is gonna do unannounced project is gonna do well. Mike Donay created Battlegrounds, Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and they really dropped the ball on monetizing that.
Yep.
But Mike Donay's he's awesome. So let's root for his new unannounced project and hope these other StarCraft projects, because everything's about the support system. It's like, yes, I am biased to StarCraft Brood War. Yes, it was like an international phenomenon, but you need all these support groups. You need a comic book, you need a movie, you need like AI videos on YouTube, just like pushing this. You need Zombie Grub necroing these like has-beens talking about the past. But it's all the support network, and I'm going to be throwing my 2 cents in the glass half empty, and being more supportive. I feel incredibly guilty because some people have reached out and said, what happened to you? Like in 2011, a really emotional moment was I met Guillaume in Vegas and his mom was there and she was so happy to see me. And I'm like, how do you remember me? But it was a heartbreaking moment because my parents don't know who Guillaume is. And it's just, Guillaume doesn't care. He understands why. It's the culture thing, but it's, it's the fact that Guillaume's mom and, passing of his dad, like, remember me as this very special, tasteless. His mom remembering me. Shout out to Kara LaForge. It's pretty
Yeah.
pretty huge. She thanks me because from uh Nick Plot and Sean Plot watching me, I guess, they learned responsibility. They were mowing lawns to make money to pay for gas to go to these local StarCraft tournaments. So I didn't realize I didn't realize
The
there were still
impact.
people. Yeah, I didn't realize the impact. There's somebody from my high school that yeah, he just found me in poker. He's like, dude, I was trying to find you. I remember you. I was like, or sorry, he didn't know about me, but he had heard about me that we went to the same high school, and he just, was trying to find out more.
Hmm.
But yeah, gaming was all those games were special. It's not just StarCraft. It's a Street Fighter 2 special, Magic Gathering special, Doom 2, Quake, StarCraft. Of course, everything past that, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Dota 2, a slew Clash Royale, all these games are just special in their own way. And I meet a lot of the esports people from different games, and it's just like it's so cool that it's like we're all just like family members. It's
Hmm.
like, who are you? Oh, Counter-Strike? Nice. StarCraft? Nice.
Right.
And it just yeah, it's really cool. Like it's yeah, that's for a different piece of content. I don't want to name specific names, but they're going through now what I went through when I stopped StarCraft. It's just like a part of us is just like ripped out and we have to like become an adult. But it's kind of a growing process. And one of the difficult things about esports is what you transition to next after being a competitor because it doesn't translate as well like normal sports. You don't just be a coach or do something else. But we're figuring that out. Hopefully it's in the Olympics. I hear as soon as
Yeah.
2028. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, StarCraft, like, Dennis Fong, shout out to Thresh for as the icon kicking it off, but StarCraft is the game that really, really kicked things off. And again, shout out to South Korea for, putting it to that new level.
Hmm.
I haven't met Flash yet, but at least, my generation and a little bit beyond, we're all buddies, I haven't talked to Yellow, but I met him. Slayer's Boxer interviewed the World Series, Guillaume, good buddies. Still talk to Jay Severson, Gadianton to this day. Garimto, I've talked with Elke, going through some stuff, so we'll hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of already touched on it, but just maybe a couple more words on what StarCraft means to you personally.
That's a long-winded one. What StarCraft means to me, it's the best time of my life. It was when I was the most pure. I did things for the love of the game. Like tournaments are so common now. When I played the first StarCraft tournament ever, likely, and neutral ground, it was such a rush. When I was casting, I was like, I know this game. I love this game. I know most of the competitors in a way that these guys don't know each other. And when I won the first world championship, I did it random. And that was like, you don't show any more love for the game than playing StarCraft random. In fact, uh,
Yeah.
in fact, box like a common question people ask is like, what race do you play? So the one thing I have on Slayer's Boxer, not the one thing I'm exaggerating, but like the one thing Slayer's Boxer is like, oh, what race did you play? And I was like, Randa. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
got one thing on you, buddy. But yeah, for the love of the game, the kickoff for professional StarCraft was like a dream come true. And just out of all the achievements in my life, if I wanted one really bad, it would have been StarCraft World Champion. So I was very lucky to get that. And I could achieve many, many other things. It's just not gonna compare to this buddy. And again, just so fortunate because I know a lot of people out there really, really, really want to be world champion or something in their game. So it's just a memory I'm gonna savor. And my passion during those couple years or X years for all of RTS in general, I'm very glad can be just pulled out and Googled. It's like you spend so much time and energy on something, you at least hope that there's records of what you've done. So at least AI can pick it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just several key people. Shout out to Kazma, shout out to all you guys who were um very encouraging to me to bring out my personal brand back. Shout out to Tasteless and Artosis. Yeah, it means more to me than you guys will ever know because I had to walk away from the dot-com boom and StarCraft. One of the big reasons was my mother because um, she wanted me to go back to school and have a proper education. So that's a lot to her when I got into UC San Diego's computer science major. Is she got sick after, and then I got to spend as much time as I could with her before she passed. It's that
So,
if you can get Thresh and Gadianton on, that would be really good. Gadianton went on to co-found chess.com. But like I said, the three kind of adult figures, older brother figures in my life, Brian Weissman, who ended up being executive producer of Path of Exile, Thresh, the true godfather of kicking all this stuff off. Gadianton, one of my best friends, first vanilla StarCraft world champion. And yeah, just they showed me entrepreneurship and we all have our grown-up projects. And that era is just super special to us, even if history kind of, forgets about us, so to say.